British dominance in qualifying for the British Grand Prix as George Russell, Lewis Hamilton and Lando Norris lock out the first 3 places on the grid for Sunday's Grand Prix. Elsewhere, Max Verstappen survives a scare, Sergio Perez endures his latest shocker, and Ferrari remain all at sea. From Racing News 365, my name is Nick Golding and I'm joined as always by lead editor Ian Parks. Ian, the sun has come out, it is shining. The British drivers on top. What a day to be a Brit.
The sun may be shining, Nick. I tell you what, I didn't think we were going to see this blue stuff when I walked into the circuit early this morning, when it was absolutely lashing down with rain. Kept on pouring down for quite some time, and it looked like it might just end up being a complete washout. Thankfully, we did get a quite remarkable qualifying performance. 56 years you have to go back to a British 1, 2, 3 in qualifying. Jim Clark, Graham Hill, Jackie Stewart, 1968 South African Grand Prix. Today we can now say George Russell, Lewis Hamilton, Lando Norris, a British 1, 2, 3. The first British 1, 2, 3 at a British Grand Prix in Formula One history. So history has been made here in quite spectacular fashion in what I thought, what has to be said, forget the fact it was a British 1, 2, 3. I thought it was a quite remarkable qualifying. One of the best I've seen for quite some time. Full of drama, full of action, and one we're going to go through right now for our wonderful viewers.
Well, let's start then with Mercedes. Russell on pole, still in fine form after picking up the win in Austria. Lewis Hamilton in second, his first front row of the season, the first Mercedes front row lockout since Brazil 2022. I mean, Mercedes are back, it seems. They are liking Silverstone this weekend.
And totally unexpected, if you want to believe the words of Lewis Hamilton. When he was interviewed by David Coulthard immediately after that Mercedes qualifying performance. We've got an inkling. We've always had an inkling that this was coming. We've seen it building. Obviously, George got that pole position in Canada, dead heat with Max Verstappen on that particular occasion. He was on pole only by the fact that he set his time first ahead of Max. This, though, was Mercedes, quite clearly, it seems, back to its best. McLaren, we thought, had the edge coming into it. We knew Mercedes was close. CEO Zak Brown had indicated that Mercedes was going to be challenging when we spoke to him earlier today, and so it proved. They delivered brilliantly in final practice, although it was never quite sure whether that was the conditions playing to the Mercedes strengths, or whether there was actual genuine performance in that car. Well, now we know there is actual genuine performance in that W15, and quite comfortably now, quite clearly we can say Mercedes is definitely back in this fight with Red Bull, with McLaren, and yes, what is going on with Ferrari, we will come on to them in a moment, because quite clearly they've gone backwards right now.
Yeah, we will come on to Ferrari. What's really interesting with Mercedes is that, as we discussed yesterday, Lando Norris pointed out Mercedes after practice and said, you know, Mercedes are sandbagging it, expect some more from them. Lando was absolutely bang on the money. Of course, it is Norris who will start the race in third, aborted his final lap in Q3, returned to the pits. He was probably the favourite for pole going into qualifying, given that he topped both dry sessions on Friday and was also towards the sharp end in the mixed conditions in FP3 earlier today.
That was the impression. I mean, look, we can't say for definite how Friday running is always going to go. We always got a little indication, but as you pointed out, Lando right on the money by saying Mercedes was sandbagging. Again, we do have to take the conditions into consideration, because, okay, right now it's blue sky behind me, but as you can see, folks, I'm still wearing my rain jacket because, trust me, it is bloody cold. I'm standing here overlooking this beautiful part of the circuit. I'm just on a raised element of it, and the wind is blowing. It is quite chilly. My hands are slightly shaking, so forgive me if you see a little bit of vibration with this video output tonight. But yeah, definitely we weren't quite sure what Mercedes had in hand. Did the cooler conditions play a part? We'll have a better understanding when we go to Hungary in 2 weeks' time, because there we should at least get way hotter weather. And generally, that is usually a track that does play to Mercedes' strengths. So we will see. But for now, this front row lockout, they've got to build on that. Can they bring home a British victory in front of the British crowd? But Lando Norris is most definitely going to be there challenging. And I really don't think we can rule out Max Verstappen, despite the problems he's had today in qualifying.
Well, absolutely. Let's get on to Max, because actually P4, for someone who didn't watch qualifying, will probably be thinking, Verstappen P4? That can't be right. Well, the reason for that was that he had quite significant floor damage. Red Bull will not be wanting to see Cops corner anytime soon. It caught out Sergio Perez in Q1, causing a red flag because he became beached in the gravel. We'll mention him in a second. A few minutes later, after the red flag, Verstappen also went through the gravel at Cops. Thankfully, though, kept the car going and safely resumed in the session. But as we saw from TV footage, he had to nurse significant damage to the floor, which impacted the performance of the RB20. So actually, P4 for him is a very good result, given that we know that with Max, he can win from fourth on the grid tomorrow.
Yeah, Q1 was definitely a session for Red Bull to forget. Both drivers, as snaps of overseer going into the entry to Cops. In Checo's case, he then ran across the runoff, spun on the runoff, and beached his car in the gravel. Max had that snap, again went across the runoff, but unlike Checo, he kept the power down, ploughed across the runoff, and then ploughed through the gravel. And that's what really saved him, that he managed to, as I say, power across that gravel, get back onto the circuit. But he lost, according to advisor Helmut Marko, 100 points of downforce with that floor damage. Pretty significant. The Red Bull crew did a tremendous job, managed to reduce that damage down to 20%. So at least he had something to fight with over Q1 and Q2. Q2 and Q3, I do apologise. And Q3, he finished 0.4 of a second behind George Russell. How close he would have gotten to the top three, we can only speculate. But he will have a new floor on that car for tomorrow. It is a new specification floor, updates on that floor coming into this weekend. And because Red Bull will be replacing that part with the same specification under part for May conditions, there will be no penalty. So he will, as I say, be able, in a position to push the top British trio throughout the race tomorrow. We'll see what he can deliver and whether that car is good enough around this circuit to push both Mercedes and Lando Norris in particular.
Well, of course, we will find that out tomorrow, but we've got to mention Sergio Perez. Obviously, he was beached. It caused a red flag. He didn't take any further part in qualifying, meaning he was dumped out in Q1. The latest shocker for him in what is a run of form that is spiraling out of control. On a weekend where he needs performance, and we've said this now the last few races, again, he's made a mistake in such a crucial moment.
3 times in the last 5 Grand Prix now that Checo Perez has exited Q1. And you really now start having to wonder what his future is going to be with Red Bull. We all know that earlier this year, he signed that new contract, a 1+1.
Yeah.
However, we now know, or we are led to believe anyway, that there are clauses within that contract on Red Bull's side that potentially could allow Red Bull to replace him, not just at the end of this season, but even during it. So he is under massive pressure. Christian Horner, the Red Bull team principal, said earlier this week that Perez was underperforming and there was a lot of pressure on his shoulders. That pressure has now increased significantly. He's going to start 19th on the grid. He's got an opportunity to score some points. It won't be much, but in a season when Red Bull is coming under significant pressure from McLaren in the Constructors' Championship, and now Mercedes, to a lesser extent because Mercedes are quite far back given the points now.
Yeah.
But bottom line is Red Bull needs both its drivers performing to ensure it can retain its constructors title for next season. For this season. Sergio Perez is not performing. Right now, Red Bull is fighting this constructors championship battle with one arm behind its back simply because of Checo Perez not able to produce the goods. He's under serious pressure. And if those clauses are able to be activated, there is every possibility Checo Perez might not be in that car anytime soon.
And the thing is, well, the reason why Mercedes are so dangerous in this position, because whilst they're not, they're not in title contention, they're too far off. If Lando Norris, for example, were to win tomorrow with the Mercedes drivers in second and third and Max only in fourth, that's saying quite a big point swing, in Norris's favour. And that's the danger where Mercedes can get amongst Max and Lando, which can obviously have an impact on Verstappen's lead in the championships. That's why they need Perez to be fighting to basically support Max, something he's not had really since 2021 in many ways. You think back to Sergio's immense defending in Abu Dhabi, for example, and we've not really seen that side of him. In glimpses we have, but consistently it's not been the case. Another team who are very much below par at the moment, ever since their 1 and 3 in Monaco, is Ferrari. Charles Leclerc knocked out in Q2. He'll start 11th. Carlos Sainz 7th. Behind Nico Hülkenberg, the German driver, the top Ferrari-powered driver. In qualifying today, amazing for Hülkenberg, but Ferrari, they've got to be scratching their heads because the customer team are finding performance, but the factory team are all at sea.
Yeah, I raised my fist in triumph there, Nick, because I got a bold prediction.
You did.
I did say Nico Hülkenberg will qualify in the top 10. And what a magnificent performance. As must be looking at him thinking, oh, God, he's going. But, tremendous performance from Nico and well-deserved. Quite clearly, the updates on that Haas are working most definitely for him. Kevin Magnussen, though, knocked out in Q1. So, but, we're led to believe that Kevin won't be with that team at the end of this season. The stories are that Esteban Ocon is very close now to signing a deal with Haas for 2025 to partner Oliver Behrman in the car. So it will be a completely new lineup for Haas in 2025, bearing in mind that Nico is going to the Stink Audi team for 2025. So, but yeah, great performance from Haas. And to out-qualify both Ferrari, I got that right, haven't I, Nick?
Both.
I just had to rethink for a second. Just tremendous. I mean, I mentioned it at the top of this update. Oh, there's that wind blowing for me again.
It's flying.
What has gone wrong with Ferrari since remarkable performance in the Monaco Grand Prix? They really came into their own in that race. Okay, it's a very different circuit, of course, very unique. But nevertheless, they'd been performing well, going strong, and they came out with a superb performance. Charles Leclerc victory there. And we really thought at that particular stage, this is looking good for Ferrari. They're really going to challenge Red Bull, challenge Max Verstappen. Yeah. Ever since then, they've just completely fallen away to such an extent now. It's a case of, can they even finish fourth? They're looking so poor right now. I have absolutely no confidence that they are going to come back. I'm sure they will get things right because they've just got too much going for them in terms of their facilities, their infrastructure, just a tremendous team all round. So I'm pretty confident that Ferrari will come back at some stage. But right now, it is a question of when.
It is, and the sun is shining behind you. Look at that. Very quickly to run through the top 10 from qualifying. George Russell on pole with Lewis Hamilton completing the front row. Norris and Verstappen on the second row. A good second row, we'll add. Piastri in 5th, Hülkenberg 6th, Sainz 7th, Lance Stroll in 8th, Alex Albon in 9th. Great job by him for Williams. Logan Sargent as well did well in P12. And Fernando Alonso completing the top 10. Ian, we've got to do it. Bold predictions for tomorrow. And of course, it's even harder looking ahead to tomorrow because we don't know exactly what the weather is going to do.
Right now, it's looking pretty bloody awful. This sunshine is going to continue through to tomorrow. Well, not overnight, obviously. We're going to see this sunshine tomorrow morning. But from about 12 o'clock onwards, it's going to then start raining again. And the forecast is looking pretty awful, as I say. We're expecting heavy rain around race start time. So that might have a major impact. We'll have to wait and see as to what eventually unfolds. But yes, it could have a major influence on the Grand Prix. If it's a normal race, which I would suggest right now, the Mercedes are looking very strong. They were looking very strong in the wet as well. So I will go for a Mercedes 1-2, and I am going to go with the top two on the grid as it stands, with George ahead of Lewis. As for how Lando and Max are going to get along on that second row of the grid, bearing in mind all the fallout we had from the Austrian Grand Prix, can you imagine those two are going to be going wheel to wheel at some stage over the early stages? Will they be able to avoid one another? This is going to be another fascinating aspect of tomorrow's Grand Prix, that's for sure.
And obviously what adds the extra spice is the fact that you have got George and Lewis directly ahead of him, who will also be elbows out, wanting to fight, particularly Lewis, who obviously we know how long it's been since he won a race. If it's dry tomorrow, I'm going to say it's going to be Max and Lando first and second. Not sure which order, but I just think in the dry, they're going to have the edge and the adrenaline of a championship fight. And, a Max win could really end any suggestions of a title fight. If it is wet, I'm going to go for a Lewis Hamilton victory with then Lando and Max in second and third. But then again, if it does rain, who knows what's going to happen? Because if some of the feature races from today are anything to go by in the wet, then quite literally anything can happen. And actually the timing of this video is later than normal because we had to wait for F3, which was actually postponed this morning due to heavy rain. So that then took place this evening. So lots to look forward to tomorrow. But before myself and Ian finish, we have to mention the latest Racing News 365 prize giveaway, where we are giving away tickets to this season's Belgian Grand Prix. If you want a chance of winning, all you need to do is be subscribed to this channel, racingnews365.com, and comment below who you want to take with you and why. It is as simple as that. From myself and Ian, this has been the post-qualifying F1 update. We will see you on Sunday for the post-race update. See you later.
Take care, folks.